Hello, everybody. It's Bill Walker, the gambling astrologer. I want to talk a little bit today about the stock market crash. Today is April 11th. I'm here in Lake Tahoe, getting ready for a poker tournament. But I've been predicting the stock market crash for several months. I've been telling people that early April would be the worst of it. Um, would really start the worst part of this. And as you can see, it did. And it's going to get worse the third week of April. And I want to go on and share a little bit about why. Um, I'm hoping this is a new version of Zoom. So I'm hoping that this is going to work better or it's going to work okay. All right. Um, I've mentioned in previous videos that I like using the NASDAQ chart because it works absolutely to the minute. It really works perfect. Um, I look at all the indexes charts, and this one works the best. So I'm not going to make a super long video and look at a lot. I'm going to look at the NASDAQ chart, or I'm going to show it to you here. Um, we're taking a look here at astro.com. And I want to show you, this is the chart for NASDAQ here. And I want you to look here at natal Uranus at 1321 Libra. And there was a nasty T-square forming in the progression. Note here that this is on April 2nd, the day that Trump announced the tariffs. And I want you to note here that this is one of the reasons that I predicted that we would have a crazy downfall is this T-square with the progressed sun. This is secondary progression. Progressed sun here at 1321 Aries. Notice it hits exact to minute opposition to natal Uranus. Now I want you to look at Mars here. Mars was on the second at 1318, flying to a square to natal Uranus. That's a very tight T square. So that's pretty nasty. And so you may ask, well, when is that going to go to 1321? When is progress Mars going to make an exact square to Uranus? It is going to be between the 21st of April and the 25th of April. And I'm going to expect a nosedive starting on the 21st. We're going to talk a little bit more about why. You also want to point out that on March 31st, or I'm sorry, March 28th, the Friday before the major crash in the tariffs, the progressed moon at that time was late 25 Cancer. On this date, it was 26/8. But let's say, for example, 2558 would be exact 135 degrees to the midheaven. So progressed midheaven on that day, which was a bottom, was exact 135, the midheaven. Why is that bearish or bad? Well, 135 is the midpoint between a square and an opposition, so it creates a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension going on with the coming tariffs. And so with the Uranus deals with volatility. Um, there was obviously a lot of volatility that started. And then, of course, when this aspect went exact, progressed sun opposite natal Uranus, we had the crash. Okay. So here we have the 21st of April, and that's coming up. And you'll see here that Mars is at 1320. The next day, Mars goes to exactly 1321. But this is Monday, and this is a Monday, and I'm certain that this is going to be really a start of a massive downfall. And I'm going to tell you a couple other indicators as to why. One of them is this is a lunar progression, We call it's a minor progression, um, and but it's major for timing in the stock market. Now, this is for April 21st on NASDAQ, and I want you to note here that in the progressions, Saturn is at 12 degrees of Cancer. The moon moves about 1 degree a day, and it is going to be at 12 degrees Libra. And so it will be squaring progress moon square progress Saturn on that day. Yes, I know it's trine to Mercury. There's too many bearish indicators. And of course, if it moves 1 degree a day, where's it going to be on the 22nd? 13 degrees of Libra on natal Uranus. And this lunar progression is going to hit natal Uranus at the exact same time as secondary progress Mars makes the exact square at 1321 of Capricorn. I want to take a look here at sunrise chart on, well, this is actually when market opens. And either way, we can take a look at this chart. Um, sunrise chart will show a little bit more. It's a little bit of an indication for what's going to go on that day. And we'll take a look at it here. I hope that you're getting this animation on the Zoom. Okay. All right, I want you to note the nasty T-square with Mars at 1 degree of Leo, near the exact square of the Sun at 1 degree of Taurus, and the Moon-Pluto conjunction, making a T-square here. Okay. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up, and I'm looking at the NASDAQ chart, is often when it hits this index chart, it it ends up triggering. So we're going to look at the NASDAQ chart. And I want you to note that the ascendant is 1 degree of Taurus, where the sun will be. Mercury, 1 degree of Aquarius. The moon, 0 degrees of Leo. And so there is a T-square here, and that T-square sits right on top of this T-square here, um, creating more tension. Also want to show you this, as there's another indicator that I find interesting. So let's take a look here. This is SPY, the S&P 500. Okay. And this right here, where I've got the pointer, this key top, this is the COVID crash right here. And this is the current crash right here. This kind of longer crash, this was 2022. This was the 2022 top. And it topped at about 4,800 on the S&P 500. Okay. Now, just recently, when we had this recent crash, we bottomed on Monday, April 7th. We bottomed at 4,800 on the S&P 500. So we went back to the high of the 2022, January 2022, January 4th, specifically of 2022. We hit the high, which ended up being a major support. What I want to note here is that it hit 4,800 here, and then it took almost the entire year from January 4th to October to slowly make a large correction and slowly going back up. We didn't hit 4,800 until January 19th, 2024. The number of days between this date, January 4th of 2022, and this date, January 19th of 2024, is 745 days. Now, if we multiply that by a Fibonacci factor, 1.618, we are going to get 1,206 days. If we go 1,206 days after January 4th, 2022, we are going to hit April 24th, 2025. Here's why I think that's interesting. I want to show you when we hit 4,800. Note that this is the sunrise chart for Monday, April 7th, 2025. This is when we hit a bottom after the massive crash that started after Trump's tariff talk on after hours on April 2nd. I want you to note here that Venus and Saturn are exact to minute conjunct at 2515 Pisces. Venus went retrograde and passed Saturn. And we bottomed that day at about 4,800. Okay. Now, I told you that the Fibonacci between the two 4,800s in the past, the 2022 and the 2024, if you take the Fibonacci factor and multiply it by that number of days times the Fibonacci factor, you get April 24th. Now I want you to look at the chart for April 24th. We note that Venus will station and then go direct. And notice here, it is now conjunct Saturn once again at 2713. So we have two things that happen this day. Number one, Venus returns to conjunct Saturn as it did on April 7th. On April 7th, the market hit a low of key support 4,800. April 24th represents a Fibonacci ratio with the last two major times that it hit 4,800. So I do think this week we're going to plummet back down to that 4,800 low. And this may be the time that it might bounce. It might bounce back on the 25th, but I look at April 21st to the 24th as being an absolute bloodbath. Let's take a look at one more interesting factor here. I think it's rather interesting. See if I can find it. Okay. This is a declination, and it's interesting that just before the 21st, we have Jupiter and Pluto. April, here we go, sorry. April. Notice on the 19th, actually. Here's Sunday the 19th. So if you look at Sunday the 19th, Jupiter 2243, Pluto 2243, Jupiter north, Pluto south. That's a contraparallel declination that hits exact on that day, and then it separates. So Jupiter Pluto is about expanding control, and to have them in contraparallel, there's some tension with this control, and it hits Donald Trump has a Venus Uranus conjunction, or I'm sorry, Venus Uranus parallel declination at about 2250 north, where Jupiter is. I think some of the control that he's having over the world through these tariffs, something's going to break, and it's going to break right there. So that next week, when the market opens on Monday the 21st, it's going to follow suit, and we're going to have a waterfall effect. It's going to go down pretty hard. Anyway, those are my predictions, and if you want to profit off of it, you should short the market probably around the 18th, maybe the 17th. I'm going to be looking more for price levels on those days to hopefully find a good day. And I'll be buying put options for QQQ and for SPY. Well, that concludes it. And so, yeah, Try your best to profit off of this this crash, and good luck. Thank you.